So welcome to episode 8 of Daredevil Born Again. Holy shit. Holy shit, this was a good episode. Don't know why I've got my headphones on, they're just kind of comfy right now. I just realised I've got these on for no reason, I can't hear anything through them. I'm devastated that next week, for the finale, I have work. I'm working a 12-hour shift, which means I'm either going to have to get up sort of just over 2 hours, not 2 hours, just over an hour early to watch the finale and then come and review it quickly before work, or just wait until after work. It's going to be tough. I think I'm going to have to wait until after work. But, episode 8, the penultimate episode. My god, this was a good episode. Now, I sort of felt a little bit iffy about it because there were a couple of moments in it early on that I was like, what kind of episode is this going to be? Is this going to be a filler episode, or is this going to be like an actual good episode? But it pulled itself back. So let's talk about it. We started off the episode catching up with Bullseye. The whole season has kind of gone like full circle, and it's followed, it seems like, 3 storylines. You've got the Punisher storyline, you've got the Bullseye storyline, and you've got the Muse storyline, with kind of like Fisk intertwined in between all of this. And I think as a season 4 of Daredevil, it does kind of work. I think it's just a difference of style. You can tell that a certain amount of time has passed and there's a new creative behind it. But overall, I think it has been a solid season so far. There's been just like a couple of moments that have felt a bit off and felt a bit wrong. But the incredible start that we got, the visuals of Dexter in the prison, Point Dexter in the prison, brilliant, absolutely brilliant. The actor is killing it as Point Dexter. He is fantastic. The one scene that kind of lost me was when Matt goes back to the law firm. And, you know, they're trying to defend somebody or they're trying to provide counsel, and Matt doesn't want to defend him. That scene, I think, was like just not really needed. I know it was to show conflict and to show that like Matt's struggling and doesn't really know whether or not he should be protecting the bad guys, even though it's his duty. He doesn't feel like he's doing the right thing. And I think he's been struggling throughout a lot of this season as to, you know, is he doing the right thing? And that's been like the running commentary with, if he suits back up, is it the right thing to do? If he doesn't suit up and people get hurt, you know, is it the right thing that he's doing? There's a lot of like playing around with responsibility and stuff. And instead of his religious guilt, it's just his generalized guilt that they're playing around with. That's the one thing that I think was massively missing throughout this season. Especially if you were to go back and you were to watch this as a season 4 to the original show. There's no religious aspect whatsoever. And I don't know if it's because they don't want to sort of... You can't really forget that about Daredevil's character. And it's not like... He's not conservative at all. He's not that kind of religious person. So it's strange to me that they're hiding away from it, because I think that there was always a lot of good conversation to have and some very good scenes and talking characters and things, talking like characters as in like character traits and stuff when it came to relating it to his religion. But yeah, that was like the main thing that I think was missing. And you kind of felt it as this felt a lot like the old show, but we were missing that religious sort of questioning himself. It would have been cool to see him go to some kind of chapel or church. We've had like one scene related to a church in this entire season, which is crazy considering this is Daredevil. But we're back on the Bullseye storyline. Like I said, it's come full circle. Now we know that Punisher's going to be back, but I'm not quite sure how. Is he going to come in for the save here? Are we going to get like... Because there's another character that pops up in this episode that we'll get onto. We've got a lot of characters in one place, apart from Punisher. But we know from set leaks that he's going to be back, he's going to be in costume, they're going to be fighting together. We know that Matt is going to be in costume at some point. But the way that this is set up seems to be like everything is going to converge at one location and end at one location. So I'm very interested to see where we go from here. We also got a lot of Kingpin and Vanessa here. They finally sort of came back together. And I think there's a shot from the trailer. And I wasn't quite sure where it was going to come into play. And I think just now I might have sussed it out. I think, based on the final sequence of the episode, and I'll go on to talk about that final sequence in detail pretty soon, but I think based on that final sequence, it's going to give Kingpin and Vanessa an opportunity to take a step out of the firing range and it be Bullseye versus Daredevil and Punisher. That's what I think the finale is going to be. Even though it should be versus Fisk, you need Fisk to stick around longer. So I think it's going to basically be Kingpin's impressed by Vanessa. Vanessa did good. They're going to just sit it out, have lunch in front of the Rabbit in a Snowstorm painting, which we will also get back to pretty soon because there was a reference to it that was pretty amazing in this episode. But yeah, I think for the finale, those two characters will end up taking a back seat. This might be the longest review as well, because there was a lot to talk about here. So, we got we got a lot of tension between Matt and Heather in this. And I don't think that their relationship is going to last at all. I would be really, really surprised if it lasts past this season. I predicted that she might have died in the confrontation with Muse, and she didn't. And then I thought she might have got shot this episode, and she didn't. So, who knows? I've been wrong. But I'm not a fan of the character, I've got to be honest. I just don't really care for her that much. I think that there's more interesting characters in this show to be focusing on. And I think that it would have been a lot better if you need to have Matt have a female person to sort of bounce off of and talk to and relay information to and discuss things with. Where the fuck is Karen? We like Karen. We know Karen. She's cool. She's badass. We love Karen. Why are we waiting until next season to get her back? That's ridiculous to me. We had a really, really great sequence where they finally remembered that Foggy had died. I know that we've had a couple of references to it. Most noticeably, Heather mentioned it, and obviously the scene with Punisher. But we haven't really seen Matt sit down and, like, process it at all, because we got that year time jump. And after a year, most people have they're already in the grieving process, or they're on, like, the back end of it a lot of the time. They're not sort of at the start of it where it's, like, the worst. And I think that him going back to Josie's and sitting down with Cherry and sitting down with Josie was a really, really amazing scene. And I like that it, not only he realized that he wasn't paying attention and that there was more to that first episode and that first scene that they reshot, because this was a whole reshoot episode. They linked it back to the other reshot stuff. And we realized there was more to it. There was way more to it. And I liked that. I thought that was pretty cool. That was a nice little twist that, like, that story's not finished. It wasn't so clean cut and dry, you know, hang out to dry kind of thing. It's just, it took us a while to get back to it. We saw more of the anti-vigilante task force, which weirdly rhymes. The anti-vigilante. I think it's pretty obvious that they are going to be a pretty menacing force moving forward. From Vincent D'Onofrio's comments recently about the fact that Kingpin can't star in a Marvel film as a villain, not even as like a cameo or anything, it seems like we might be getting Devil's Reign on the small screen, which I'm completely fine with as long as they build it well. I haven't read Devil's Reign yet, but I want to, and I know that this is kind of following those rough guidelines of it with Mayor Fisk and stuff. So it seems like they're going to be sticking around. They're clearly brutal, and I think that we are going to need to assemble a team of defenders to take these guys on. So I'm very excited to see what they do with that. And then finally, we had the return of Tony Dalton as the swordsman. He had a little confrontation with Fisk. Now, I thought he might have died this episode. I'm not going to lie. I thought Fisk was going to sort of take him out back, and we were going to see a little bit of a fisticuff, and Fisk kill him. But it seems like they're kind of building to maybe a Swordsman versus Fisk showdown at a later point. Whether it's in the final episode or whether it's in the next season, at some stage we're going to see Swordsman and Fisk come to blows. They are building it very, very well because these are two wealthy men that are very arrogant, but in like very different ways. They're very indirect about it, and they sort of like threaten each other without making it sound threatening. And I just love it. They've got brilliant chemistry as well. Tony Dalton's fantastic. I love everything that I've seen him in. He was absolutely brilliant in the Hawkeye show. He was brilliant in Better Call Saul, and he's brilliant in this. Absolutely fantastic. I hope he sticks around, and I hope he's a part of the Defenders team, even if it's just for like a short stint. The black and white ball. This is where the entire episode came to a climax. This was fantastic. It was a lovely big event. It harkened back to season 3 when we got the ball sort of thing at the end of that season. We got Vanessa in her signature red dress from the comics. She looked fantastic. Both of them looked ripped straight out of the comics. They looked amazing. Fisk is finally back in white. We haven't seen him wear white. He's fully the Kingpin now. They are fully back as being the Kingpin and Vanessa. And like I said, all of these characters are sort of converging on this same spot. So I didn't cover it too much because I'm going to talk about it in this final section. But we had a lot of stuff sort of dotted in between about Bullseye. And, you know, we got to see Bullseye in prison briefly. Matt went to visit him. He managed to get out. I don't want to like go into too many details. If you haven't seen it, go watch it. But like everything Bullseye related this episode was brilliant, and they played around with the red and blue color theming a lot, and visually it was fantastic. We haven't seen that since like the first episode, so it's nice to have that back. I wish that had been a running theme throughout the entire season, and that was sort of the visual theme of the season, was that these very high contrast colors were being sort of filtered in over certain scenes and stuff. Made it feel like just a really brilliant comic book brought to life. So when Matt goes to visit Bullseye, Bullseye says to him that, you know, in another world you would be defending me because that's what good men do, right? And that sort of like throws Matt for a loop. And he is baffled by it. It like in the course of this episode, his train of thought seems to change so much, and you can tell that he's like having such a conflict. Again, they don't focus on like the religious aspect of it at all, which is strange. But there is a conflict there, and you can see him sort of like trying to figure out what he's supposed to do because he doesn't understand it. And then again, we'll get on to the final ending sequence, but it comes full circle, which is great. The other thing that comes full circle is the rabbit in a snowstorm. The ending sequence, Bullseye at the black and white ball, and we find out that it was actually Vanessa that hired Bullseye to go after Foggy Nelson. Now, this, in my opinion, is fantastic. This is a brilliant way of either following the comics and having it so that it was Vanessa behind the whole fake Foggy death. I'm pretty certain that's what that is, that everyone keeps referencing and stuff to say that Foggy's in witness protection. I'm fairly certain it's something Vanessa related. But if it's not, and Foggy is actually dead and we're never getting him back, this is a really, really good spin on Vanessa still being involved and it being like an adaptation but altered version of that storyline, and I really like it. The acting here was fantastic. The dialogue was fantastic. This entire last sequence from like start to finish was great. We finally had BB Urich like acknowledge that Fisk was the main suspect in Ben Urich's death. For like the first time in 8 episodes, we finally got something that makes her character like worth being here, which is, it's insane that it took 8 episodes. So I don't understand that at all. This is what I mean, like the entire season has been really good to watch, but as you're watching it, you're picking up on like these little things and you're like, why aren't they addressing this? Or why aren't they picking this up? Or, you know, why is this person acting like this or not doing this certain thing that would otherwise be natural? And it's like, a lot of people have mentioned, you know, they haven't addressed the snap or the blip. They haven't addressed, you know, who stuck around, who didn't, that kind of thing. And as much as I do obviously care about that kind of information, it's information that can be addressed at a different point. I like that this is just an isolated kind of thing. But I do think it would have brought people around to have an episode. And I kind of thought maybe when we started this episode that it could have been a flashback because of the colour grading on it. But I think we could have benefited from either an episode or half an episode or something that covered the blip and caught us up to date with what happened between season 3, which I'm fairly certain took place before Civil War, and season 4, and like how we kind of got here. I think that would have been interesting, and especially if you've got, you know, Foggy and Karen involved. Did they get blipped? That kind of thing. I think that there would have been a lot to cover there that would have been very, very interesting as just a general Marvel audience being able to get into this, because it does kind of feel like its entire universe sort of separate from everything else. And I personally, as much as I like the idea of that, I also like when these characters can cross over and acknowledge other things. Daredevil season 1 referenced the attack on New York. Yes, they didn't like name drop the T'Challa, but they referenced the incident and stuff, and it was a big plot point. Anyway, I'm rambling about what should have been, and I don't like doing that. That's not good for a review. We shouldn't be talking about what could have been. But that entire ending sequence was fantastic. It was brilliant. We got the zoom out of Bullseye over the top of the ballroom. Now, I thought they were going to fake out, and he was going to shoot Heather, thinking it was Vanessa. He wasn't even going for Vanessa. He doesn't care that Vanessa hired him to kill Foggy. He's still got a grudge with Fisk from season 3. So he goes to shoot Wilson Fisk. And who jumps in front of the fucking bullet? Matt Murdock does. Because that's what good men do, right? They defend their worst enemies. Because that is what makes a good man. And I love that it came full circle. And it only took half a chuffing episode to do it. We haven't had anything like that, I don't feel like, come full circle. We've had to wait so long to get answers for things. We had to wait half a season to find out about Muse. We still don't know what the hell's going on with Frank and Punisher cops and things. We're waiting for it. We're having to wait so long. Everything is so drawn out. And I don't know if it's because they don't have an answer for it. They don't know how to do the answer for it. Or that's just the style of it. But either way, like, this episode just did way better job of, like, building up the tension, delivering the tension, building up these character, sort of, like, storylines and, like, establishing these traits and these conflicts and then delivering on them. And it was great. The cinematography, brilliant. Again, we haven't had such good cinematography since the first episode. Really, really great shit. Really great shit. That's my review. Just really great shit. We are almost at the end. We have one episode left. They are not doing a double episode drop. They've got faith that this episode is worth a standalone episode week, and that makes me excited because you can clearly see that Marvel are very self-aware with the quality of content. You know, they were clearly quite self-aware that episode 2 was weaker than episode 1, so they dropped 2 at the same time. They were clearly self-aware that episode 5 was a lot weaker as a week-by-week sort of episode. It deserved to be binged, so they dropped it with episode 6. I think that, and again, they didn't have a lot of faith in Agatha all along, so you got like a couple of double episode drops there. They didn't really know how that was going to perform. They are aware, and I think I saw somebody else say this, and I'm going to sort of mirror it. I think that we are in safe hands with Marvel. I think that Marvel have made it very, very clear that, yes, they fumbled for a little bit because they were trying something different. It was a bit like the Marvel Now sort of initiative in the comics where they tried something new, it didn't work, so they pulled back on it. Or they switched it up slightly to appeal to more people and to just be better quality content. And I think that is what we are seeing here. I think that the next season of this show is going to be fantastic. I cannot wait for it. And this episode was just brilliant. Dare I say, possibly a 10 out of 10. Again, that one scene really like pulled me out of it. So I'm going to say 9, but like a top tier 9. If that scene earlier on wasn't there, because I didn't really need it there. I think with the stuff between Matt and Bullseye, it was enough. So I didn't feel like I needed anything else. If that weren't there, 10 out of 10. Otherwise, a very, very solid 9. This was brilliant. Fantastic week for Daredevil. Really excited for next week. I haven't decided whether or not I'm going to do it before work or after work. We will find out. But let me know what you thought of it. Let me know what you think. I loved it. Thought it was great. So thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. And I will see you guys next week for the review of the finale. Bye-bye.